Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Special Edition. Joining me on this debunking special is Anthony Riley. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to this. This is going to be interesting.
Yes, indeed. So Imric has released a video that basically tries to debunk my dioptra measurement, which I'm highly offended by on account of the fact that I tried to get it as accurately as I could, and within reason. I think I did a very good job, and essentially he's claimed otherwise. So I'm going to transition across to Anthony and his Skype screen so he can actually show you what we're talking about here. You go ahead.
Okay. So I noticed this video, Nathan's deception is worse than I thought. And essentially, all he's saying in this video is that on the dioptra picture, which is the one on the right, he's saying that this overhang here is this overhang here, and that the upper elevation up here isn't this bit here, it's actually this bit over here. Now, if this is correct, this means that the line of parallax, will be straight through there, but Nathan would effectively be inside a cave, inside the hill, and that's clearly not the position. And I just said to Nathan, have you got anything else that'll support your position other than what he's got here? Now, I mean, my own video supports Nathan's version of events anyway and contradicts this position, but Nathan, it would be subject to interpretation, and Rick would never accept it because he is a doofus. So when I said to Nathan, I said, have you got anything that you can show what to explain this? And he said, well, the problem is the crosshair is exactly where your head is. My head is literally right in the middle of the picture. So what Nathan showed then immediately, he went into his phone and he got the other dioptra pictures where he didn't quite get it perfect. And this is obviously one of the pictures where he rejected it because it wasn't perfect. But if I zoom into the picture, you can see me on top of the hill with my camera zooming, facing backwards down the picture, down the cliff, getting the actual part of the video that was taken when the video was taken, when we were doing this. So that is my head. That is my camera, my phone. There's the tape coming down, and he's missed with his shot on this occasion. So that's the reason why this now proves that what we are looking at here is exactly, hang on, let me get it a little bit smaller, is exactly what you would expect to see if the crosshair was showing my head. You can see Rick, you can see...
You can see your head in the crosshair. On the picture I put into the video, your head is literally the thing that my crosshair is perfectly on. It's why I picked it.
Yes. So Rick, just for your benefit, mate, there's the rock there that you've identified there. That is my head actually in the picture, taking the video that was in the video. And the crosshair is right on top of it at the exact moment that he took the picture. And therefore, the angle on the dioptra stands. Do you understand that, Rick?
In terms of the angle as well, that's something I want to clarify. Is like, well, were you on the beach? I got myself into a position where I was at literally where I could see the most acute angle. So all of the landmarks were as clear as possible. So I've got everything lined up in such a way that I haven't got anything in the foreground blocking my view, i.e. too close. And I haven't got anything in the far distance. What's going on? So yeah, I've tried to get in such a position that I can actually see the top of his head poking out on the very tippy top of this cliff, and that's precisely what I got. I couldn't have been any more accurate. I could have just released the one that, you know, is the one that Anthony's just shown, but why would you? I'm just going to release the one that's actually accurate. So anyway,
so there's a video or a part of a video that was taken, and obviously Nathan's at the bottom. There's the overhang that Rick's talking about. Follow the wire up, then you can see me right just on the top of the hill peeping over. So there's the part. I don't think Imric knows how to parallax because he's got this wrong. He's really got this wrong. What he thinks here, yeah, he's identified that, well done. However, he thinks that the top part, he thinks that this part over here matches this part over here. No, what it is here is this little bit of tuft of grass here, is this tuft of grass here, and then it's parallaxing behind, this cliff edge here is parallaxing my head behind the tuft of grass that's here. As you can see, there's the tuft of grass there. There's the cliff. My head is just behind it. So, Rick, you can't parallax, dude. He wasn't being deceitful.
I mean, I've got it as accurately as I can. I'm very happy with 81 feet, and I could have massaged the figure down. I could have massaged the figure up, but the bottom line is I'm extremely happy with that value. You know, I wasn't trying to be deceptive. I was trying to satisfy my own interest. Not in terms of where the sea level is on any given day, but where it is to the sea level that they measure at Mac Old Lighthouse. The The spring tide is what they use. And if I can get a high spring tide measurement as accurately as humanly possible, I'm not going to be fallacious and say high tide goes halfway up this cliff, because it's absolutely not the case. You don't have the tide in the measurement. It's a mean average of the high tides. So to use the values that would be given if you had the storm surge that we played on one of the videos, where it's going, it would be halfway up the cliff. You'd see water splashing all over this location. That's not what I'm doing. That would be fallacious. I want to find one that is a good high tide value. So you look at the picture from the top. Yeah, I would have hoped that Anthony did a better job. I moaned at him, but that's just life. You know, you can see the sea, you can see the lines of all the seaweed that line up against it. You can see me standing in it. I can't really ask for much more than that. But for holding the camera myself, and I can't be in two locations at the same time. So other than that, I'm pretty happy with what we got. I'll just transition back to Anthony so he can show you one last time. That's his head poking through, holding his camera, looking down at me. You know, you can't really ask for much more than that. You know, I've picked the right location. The crosshairs are exactly on it. What more can you do in terms of getting an angle? You try and clear all the obstacles. You try and line it up with the top as best as you possibly can. Obviously, if I moved a foot to the right, this massive thing on the right would be obscuring my diopter measurement. So, you know, it's a tricky thing to do. I took a long time over it. I tried and tried to line up the land so that I had a very good representation of the angle from the bottom to the top, and that's what I took. I couldn't do it first time, hence I ended up with the crosshairs ending up lower on a couple of the shots. When I actually got it absolutely spot on, not in the sky, on his head, that was the one I used for obvious reasons. That's the one that's going to best represent him standing there with a tripod, even though he's putting, you know, life and limb at risk by sticking his head out the top of the cliff, which is exactly what he did. You know, a few phone calls. It's really scary up here because it is high. You know, you would probably lose your life if that cliff underneath Anthony while he was doing it gave way. So the bottom line is we wanted it to be as accurate as possible, especially if I'm going to go over to the Isle of Man at some stage and get a measurement from there. And it's the same exact principle when I was talking about keeping the reference plane the same. So if you're going to use Google on one side, that's tied to WGS84 for that location and gives you a value based on that. It might be plus 10 feet, it might be minus 10 feet. They give 30 feet, 30 meters as a variance. But the bottom line is it's all tied to a particular reference point. Same on the other side with Moorgård Lighthouse. So what's good on one side is good on the other. Same applies with Ordnance Survey map, even though it seems to be the case that Ordnance Survey does put it higher. So, you know, the average between the two is probably where it will end up and probably what it actually is, and coincidentally, or not, what we've actually measured. So Ordnance Survey seems to be a bit higher. Google Earth seems to be a bit lower. What a shock. They're using different reference datums. So why wouldn't they be slightly off? That makes sense. In our opinion, that's where the actual obfuscation or the deception, depending on what you want to call it, actually lies. And you've hidden it in the variant that goes up and down all the time, the sea level. What a good place to hide it. But as we get into these nitty-gritty details through the debates, we actually get to see where the sleight of hand's played as we get into more and more detail on what the actual images are doing. Now, it's a game in terms of the debate process. We don't know where they are and what they realise and understand. Admittedly, Miles Davis has recently tipped his hand to that, which is great news. They don't know what we know in terms of what we have got on our side, and so it progresses. But it's getting down to the finite details of what we see at distance and what we can't see at distance. What's a hologram, what isn't a hologram, all these kind of nonsense things can be addressed as we go forward. What I'm actually interested in, I already know the Earth's flat, I don't need to prove it to anybody and don't care. The debate process gives me a show and is good fun and I enjoy it. But what I am interested in is reality. That I'm definitely interested in, so's Chris. And I can't speak for Anthony, obviously he's fighting his own corner and therefore biased towards his own arguments. But from my point of view, I'm just looking at reality. I just want to know how this stuff actually works. What actually is the effect of looking out at distance? I've already resigned myself there's no curve, because there isn't any. That's the bottom line here. People can disagree and have their own faith and belief in the curve Earth that they think they live on. That's fine by me too. There is an acceptable explanation for this on a curve. We will give it. You know, it's getting, their explanation's getting more and more detailed as well as we go forward. And at the end of it, you just get a choice. Do you accept that we're making our calculations to things that we can't see in their entirety? And as you go up in altitude, you can see more because the Earth is curved and you can see over the bulge more. But you're still seeing holographic representations of things that are below your feet. Or do you accept that we have straight lines of sight with things that you can measure in the distance? And the further you go, depending on the weather conditions, you may have more obstruction, the obstruction formerly known as curvature, represented to you in the bottom section of the image. And these things can be detailed, will be explained, but you'll still have a choice at the end of it. You know, us with our P900s versus 500 years of heliocentric mathematics. Let's see how we get on. I'm quietly confident. I don't know about you, Anthony. How do you feel about this whole thing?
I think that the more people look at it, the more it becomes flat. But they have to find more and more excuses and explanations for what they can see. Fundamentally and principally, if there was curve there and there was a bulge there, it would be consistent all the time. And it is demonstrably and evidently the case that it is not. So they've got to come up with nonsense for why it is the way it is. And the more we look into it, it's really interesting because I've described it as the gift that keeps on giving, and it is. It really, really is. The more we look into it, the more the discussion is, the more the debate is. Let's see what we can find out to be true.
Yeah, I completely agree. And with that, I'm going to keep this relatively short and sweet and say, first and foremost, a massive thank you to Anthony Riley and Imric for giving us a bit of a laugh. And, of course, to all of the audience, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.